Is there a Montevideo, Minnesota station on? Okay, this is going to Robert Volts. Text follows. We're doing fine. It missed us. Some storm. End of text. Signed Love, Tom, and Bonnie, lawyer.
The best procedure for them to do, since our phones are about 800% overloaded here right now, is to go to their Red Cross chapter in their area. The Red Cross chapter then will notify Shepherd Air Force Base, and that will take the problem from the phone calls away from us, and we will get back to them as soon as we can.
This will be a Western Union kind of message to go through. It will come through a telegram kind of thing, and they'll be answered as soon as possible.
Out of vehicles right this minute. What's this? 45 Alpha.
Yeah, load up the stadium loaded.
Go ahead!
I think they learned that all their concerns about tornadoes are justified, and that the safety-related structures indeed were not damaged significantly or to the detriment of the function of any system within it.
Well, I think that 15 years ago that charge would have been justified. I feel that today I am a citizen of this state in my own right. I recognize that I have many friends as a result of my father's career. I also have many friends as a result of my own efforts.
We're trying in our House, in the Senate, we have been trying to get a program. We've taken firm positions. Those positions are sincere. I think they're just as sincere, if not a lot more sincere, than some of those that are carping about the activities. And the more that is said now is not for movement in the legislature, but for partisan political advantage. However, I do understand their concern, since of the 5,000 taxpayers out of approximately 1 million taxpayers in this state that would be most helped, I would say probably 90% of them are substantial contributors to their party.
Did you get the rules changed on
We met today just to kind of open our discussion on it, and then we'll meet next week and do something fine. Huh? You don't have to have a secret ballot among honorable people. You better have one. You have a secret ballot. Well, I'm not closed-minded against secret ballot, but there are a lot of strong feelings against secret ballot. Now, when Jerry, are the Republicans going to get an open system like the House has? Well, in a secret, you've had secret ballot within a secret caucus.
I want to make it perfectly clear to the press and to the committee members that I will do my utmost to be fair. I want to make it perfectly clear that Speaker Draper has not talked to me about a railroad case against Dr. Ned Benton.
Every effort to make sure that at no
Question has been brought up about from the press about how Chairman.
We don't have to have one for everybody, but I need to see it once.
Okay. So we do have a good place to stay. Over there, in the living room.
we do have a good place to stay.
These immediate needs are food, clothing, shelter, and emergency medical needs. I emphasize that we are not asking for food and clothing. The logistical problems make it impossible to get those items to the victims. What we need now are dollars that will provide those needs.
Excellence in our development of the watchword at Langston University program. We had been developed in the predominant black.
Martin?
Mr. Martin, do you have counsel?
No. Matter of opinion. Yes, sir.
The problems being raised well, we still are looking at factors involving Dr. Tucker.
I remember very vividly when I was at the airport and when they interviewed me, and someone raised a question about whether the chairman of the board would treat me the way they had treated about 5 or 6 other different presidents they've had. And they went on to say, oh yeah, all of that is over now, that we are going to support this man, and that, a new day, and we're going to do all of these different things. And so naturally I felt good about it, and that's why I did not press for a multi-year contract. Go underground and start fighting. Well, nothing definite, because I have just been there. I used to work in Atlanta, and I have some friends there, and so I've been making some contact and getting some leads, and there's a possibility. Different things that start building up a case against me, So I was disappointed in that, and
Hey, Terry, why don't you jump in here for me? Go through the line.
If we're going to continue the program, we've got to face facts, and the facts are that we can't get people to render the service if they're losing money every time they perform an inspection.
And it's deteriorated now down to the point where if you can find someone that will inspect your car, it's a matter of, like one of the other representatives said the other day, he asked the service station if they would inspect his car. He says, no, but I'll give you a sticker if you'll give me $2. And that's pretty much what most people run into. Right. Horn. Windshield wipers. Okay, shut them off.
More than 4,000 residents in Columbia have moved to higher ground. That's half this city's population. But not everyone left home. Jesse and Robert Patterson built a dam, and it could get worse with a 70% chance of more rain here added to the Pearl River reaching its crest about 12 feet over flood stage. Ike Siemens, NBC News, Columbia, Mississippi.
Attorneys for the American Civil Liberties Union called more witnesses to show specific areas in the prison system that still need improvement. Louis Elgin is an inmate in the protection unit at the state penitentiary in McAllister. He says inmates under protection are let out just twice a week for exercise. The ACLU contends that more time outside the cell should be allowed. Another inmate from the Stringtown Correction Center is a law library clerk. Jesse Hill says he has no qualifications for the job, but tries to help inmates anyway. The ACLU says attorneys should be hired as legal assistants. The state says no. That issue and the conditions in the protection unit are the only major differences between the two sides. Although Judge Bohannon refrained from making any closing statement, he did rule against the state on the question of standards. He says he expects the state to meet standards set by the American Correctional Association. The state hoped a less extensive set of standards would be approved. After the hearing, both sides appeared satisfied.
Of all of the hearings that I've been in since I've come to Oklahoma, I think that this particular hearing has gone better than any other one. I think even the plaintiff's witnesses, the experts that are supposed to criticize us, have generally said that we're doing a reasonably good job, that the momentum is on our side this time.
If the corrections people feel like the momentum's on their side, it's only because they've ceased to fight the stream. They've conceded to the court's order and stated that they will comply. And they're going to find the road a lot easier in complying than in fighting the court.
Attorneys for both sides were given until noon Thursday to turn in their final proposals. Judge Bohannon will use those to make his own ruling, which is due back at the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals in Denver by May 1st. At the federal courthouse, Bruce Creeksey, News Center 4.
So if you don't, we'll recognize Dr.
Last Thursday. There's basically three areas that are wrong. Then second, last Thursday. Various key documents that are... At last count, there's some 163 separate construction projects that are involved in this estimate, and thousands of pages of audit findings. And we certainly did not have time to give this the same kind of scrutiny that we have given construction projects requests in the past.
type of exposure kills actively dividing cells, so your hair falls out, your skin sloughs off, and saccharine, because it causes cancer in mice. Medical, psychiatric.
But this became a major incident, not through design error, but through the operator's errors. However, the defense in depth continued to function to safely permit the shutdown of the reactor. In fact, some safety systems were not called upon to be used. At Black Fox Station, the adjacent General Electric simulator will offer the Black Fox Station operators an excellent tool for being drilled in how to handle such situations.
We are being lied to. This is critical that the public, the legislative officials wake up. You can read transcripts from NRC around 3 Mile Island, and you know the confusion and the panic that was in that among our officials. When the truth comes out, it may be too late. Acute radiation sickness. Thousands of Japanese died, and abnormalities in future generations. Was a meltdown, say at Black Fox. You go ahead. I want to mention some other medical sites because it causes cancer in mice.
But this became a major incident, not through design error, but through the operator's errors. At Black Fox Station, the adjacent General Electric simulator will offer the Black Fox Station operators an excellent tool for being drilled in how to handle such situations. This will hopefully reduce any chances for operator error at the operation of the Black Fox Station.
Factors. We can already show nuclear power is uncompetitive. Nuclear power costs.
We are being lied to. This is critical that the public, the legislative officials wake up. You can read transcripts from NRC around 3 Mile Island, and you know the confusion and the panic that was in that among our officials. When the truth comes out, it may be too late. Years. That means that if you start out with a certain air, somebody else would breathe it. These things don't go away. Released or I-9131, it only has a half-life of 8 days. This is a current problem around 3 miles.
We were just not able to get the House to agree to a tax reduction measure. Their position firmed up rather early, and they stayed with it. And as you know, having followed the meetings of the committee, is that they've steadfastly maintained if there was going to be an income tax reduction, there should be a compensating tax increase on the corporate income tax.
Are no longer applicable to the community treatment centers. And that should, the next legislative session, for what I said was that they'd added.
Do you swear that the testimony that you are about to give statement, which will mostly have to do with
I accuse him of using his office, his public office, to deliberately deceive the legislature and a well-laid plan over a long period of time. I accuse him of dishonesty and deceit that would cost the taxpayers of Oklahoma $5 or $6 million. This money would have been used to build his own private empire in the Department of Corrections, and I don't say those things. Many of the things asked for were needed. Some were ridiculous.
without, in the income taxes without raising taxes somewhere else. We can afford it. Answered the other day that that current year, I will veto any measure that comes to my desk significantly greater than recommended in my balanced budget. I'm asking the legislature to do it now. There is no need whatsoever for a special session. I feel it would be an insult to waste tax dollars trying to give taxpayers a tax break.
Well, of course, that's his prerogative. And I think we have to realize that what he's talking about, the additional money, if it's appropriated, is going to go primarily to education, to common ed, higher ed, and vocational and technical education, perhaps some additional money to highways, and money for capital improvements, including the Tourism and Recreation Department. And if the governor wants to veto those, of course, that's his prerogative.
And when we do something like this, when we go down and we make a criminal become asexual, you know what we're really doing? This is what we're really doing. We're getting down to the level of the criminals.
Now, I think if you ever had a daughter that was raped by one of these sex maniacs or kidnapped and molested by one of these sex maniacs, that you might have a different, I think you might think a little bit different.
Don't do this. Please. It is wrong.
And it's really encouraging to see that the infants that were discharged after 2 weeks to maybe 2 months, that you still had some question about were they going to be normal at 2 years of age or now normal. And that makes it all worthwhile.
And the reason that we cut back from 17 to 13 million is because $13.2 million is what Ned Benton thought that the governor was going to give us. And if they had said we only needed 10 million, we would have upped it to 13 million. And if the architects had upped it to 25 million, we would have brought it back down to 13 million approximately, because that's what he had a commitment for, and that's the magic figure.
You will assure not only members of the Indian community, but members of the entire state that this won't happen to their children. You know, it's a different thing when someone's breaking into your home or threatening your life, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about an automobile versus a person's life. And I'm asking for your support through Myrtle Foley, as I represent her as her attorney, but also the entire Native American community.
I would plan that I think you have several of them that are good ideas that I'd like to look into, but I obviously can't respond for something I'm not responsible for, or in instances of which I'm not informed.
The director of the National Clearinghouse for Criminal Justice Planning and Architecture, supported under LEA funds. The Department of Justice for funds to support the development of a correctional master plan, and in that instance, the Department of Justice itself requested that I provide information, which...
In almost every instance, it's very similar and very close to the final analysis that you turned in the exhibit through the Brown book.
I can only say that our portion of the work was done independently, and any similarities would strictly be a coincidence.
A group of old tractors parked near the U.S. Capitol is the only remains of this winter's American Agriculture Movement protest. The farmers are now back working on their farms during the year's busiest season. The grassy Capitol Mall, stretching to the Washington Monument where the tractors were parked, has been partially reseeded this spring, but that seems to be an annual maintenance practice anyway. 2 American Agriculture Movement tractors drove into the Capitol reflecting pool this winter and supposedly damaged it. But Harvey Gardner, an AAM activist from Hydro and a member of the Elk City delegation, felt the situation was overplayed.
You know, there was one tractor that got into the pool, and of course they clean that pool every year, take machinery in it, clean it out. You couldn't really tell on the grass itself because it was covered with snow a lot of the time, but there were a few ruts and tracks where a tractor had driven, but not any of the deep, torn up areas like we were led to believe.
The U.S. Parks Department set the initial repair bill in the millions of dollars. If so, there's at least one Oklahoma farmer who'd like the contract.
It finally got down to $200,000 or $300,000, but at one point in time it got up to $4 or $5 million, and it just kind of depended on who you wanted to listen to. But I would like to have the job of fixing this thing for $4 million. I think I could take some Oklahoma farmers and make good money.
Right. The average Capitol grounds worker seemed to sympathize with the farmers, saying their protest was no different from any other, and that mowing and spring cleanup is not any different this year than it has been in the past. From Washington for News Center 4, this is Ken Root.
Concrete, and we may not have any problem at all, so I'm urging people overreaction. So this is not in, yes, seriously, so forth. So there's nothing in concrete now. There will not be a gasoline shortage in Oklahoma unless we create one by panic purchasing of gasoline. Now, this in no way means that we should not be doing all that we can to conserve energy. Gasoline consumption and prices are up nationwide. I would encourage everyone to carpool, to drive 55 miles per hour, and to cut out all unnecessary driving.
I am proposing that we, in an effort to get the session off of high center, with the governor reaching an inflexible position on one hand and the House another inflexible position on the other hand, that the only way I know to resolve it is let's pass a bill and see, test their strength.
The high cost of living, taxes, and government, all wrapped together with inflation thrown in. Those are is the concern of the average Oklahoman. They want us to know that they think government ought to give them a break, and that it's tough out there, and that all possible consideration that they can receive, I get it constantly. And everywhere I go, I'm encouraged by people who say, hang in there.
We, the jury and panel, and sworn in the above entitled cause, do upon our oaths, having heretofore found the defendant, Lonnie Joe Dutton, guilty of murder in the first degree, fix his punishment at death. Signed, Lanny Williams, Foreman.
Before I got on methadone, every day I had to steal, burglaries and stealing out of shops and stuff like that, a couple $100 a day. And this program has kept me from having to do that. It takes a sick from me every morning, so I don't have to, I don't have to go out and steal something to get heroin to keep from being sick.
Does a thorough, complete physical. They have a nursing evaluation, and they go through an intake process where they're seen.
The clients themselves are able to live in a more relaxed way. And through being more relaxed, the fact that they know that their drug is going to be there the next day, they are then more accessible for counseling. They're more probably on a better basis with their families.
Oh, great.
Mike? Sit down.
Yeah, same stage. You come down through there for
Hit you pretty good?
Yeah, it didn't do too bad, but about a couple of $100 worth of work.
See you later.
Take care, Mike.
When I left here a while ago down at the GX.
has a 1.59. Kansas has a 1.25. On the contributions paid in. Well, I think obviously the House of Representatives has to face up to the fact that something should be done in this area. That is no longer time for rhetoric and talk, but a decision is going to have to be made, because if we adjourn this session with nothing being done and this petition passes, they have redistributed the burden of state government and the tax load further upon the middle income taxpayers.
We've discussed the various levels of the corporate income tax. We've discussed the sales tax measure, and now we've offered to withdraw from the position we've maintained the majority of the portion of the session in regard to the corporate income tax. So there will be no more requests for a caucus to discuss tax measures from me.
Don't want to segregate certain aspects of the business and give certain people a discount that aren't entitled to it, and because just trying to get certain class of business. We want to make sure that you aren't overcharged and paying for somebody else's rate. I plan on bringing this up at their filing when it's discussed before the board, and try to bring in this particular discount and look at it and see if it's advantageous to all Oklahomans, or if they're out soliciting business and this is just a gimmick to attract more business.
We have to print a ballot for every eligible vote in Oklahoma. That variable cost is almost exclusive. If a single question went on the 1980 ballot, in addition to the ones that probably already will be there, the cost is negligible, and I'll tell you why. The only additional cost is the cost of setting type so that we can print the ballots for that question, and that cost is very small, obviously. And then the additional cost of the paper for the ballots. We're talking about a ballot that's maybe that long instead of that long.
In their second massive rally in a week, teachers gathered at the fairgrounds, some 18,000 strong, hoping their show of solidarity would convince the legislature to give them the additional money they're asking. Teachers want $15 million set aside for tax cuts to go to education and to increase teachers' salaries, which are among the lowest in the region. But when Governor Nye took the podium, his message was not what teachers wanted to hear.
And the people have said, we want a tax cut. I have asked that the people consider a moderate tax cut.
Teachers say while schools desperately need the money, a tax cut is the last thing Oklahoma needs. Teachers left the fairgrounds dissatisfied with what they'd heard and planning to take their demonstration to the steps of the Capitol, where Governor Nye was preparing to address a joint session of the legislature.
The governor arrived to a packed chamber at the House of Representatives to give his second major speech since taking office. Hundreds of teachers had filled the gallery to hear what the governor had to say, but they were not words that teachers wanted to hear.
The people want a tax reduction. The people expect a tax reduction. The people deserve a tax reduction. Do it now.
House and Senate leaders who have been haggling over a tax cut plan all session had this reaction to the governor's speech.
Although I didn't notice anything new that was added, I think that it was, you might say, a restatement very strongly of his feelings.
I had hoped that he would take a position on the proposal that we've been urging that would remove the sales tax on residential gas and electrical bills, because this is one that would be of primary benefit to those on lower incomes and on fixed incomes. We had previously offered that as a possible compromise, and in my letter responding to his request for a joint session, I had particularly asked that he establish his position on that measure.
So the tax cut issue is still very much alive at a time when the legislature looks toward adjournment and the appropriation of millions of dollars to areas like education. Bella Shaw, News Center 4, State Capitol.
Legislators made no promises to the teachers who gathered outside the Capitol after hearing the governor's address. But the teachers, after a day of demonstrating, remained optimistic.
Things are happening, and it's only because 500 a day, 15,000 Saturday, 17, 18,000 today cared enough to come give our story to the people who establish priorities and programs.
Now teachers are organizing to work through the summer to defeat a tax cut proposal made by the Republicans. Christy Myers, News Center 4.